Welcome back, Sober Family. This is another episode of Recovery Talk brought to you by Pro Recovery Power. This is the second show. The second live we're doing today. I made mention in the last live I did that from now on I'm going to be going live only on Saturdays, and that's at 12 noon and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I did all the announcements in the last episode. I'm going to just kind of touch on it on this one again. You guys, if you guys could please go to our website, Pro Recovery Power. It's a brand new website. On the bottom right hand corner, please fill in. It's a survey that we got there that'll really help move the vision forward for PRP. Now, my next guest is Robert. He's the guy behind Any Length Retreat. And I know a lot of you out there, you guys are friends with him on social media. I've been following him for a while as well. And I spoke with him a couple days ago, and I got to hear a little bit about, his background and everything. And it's a pretty amazing story. What's up, Blair? Man, you never fail. You're always here. But it's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to hear anybody talk about what life was like. They once struggled with an addiction and they no longer do. And their life is just great today. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear his story. I'm not going to tell it for him, but I'll get him on and then we can get started. Hi, Jill. Okay, it's still saying, if you can hear me, Robert, it's still saying it's waiting for you. And Robert, this is just a heads up. If you're trying to go live on a computer, it's not going to work. You got to be on your phone. But, he'll be here in a second. Okay, Jill, how are you? I'm good. Thank you so much. Some of you may not know, some of you do, that my mom passed away recently, and it's hard to describe. I only have one mom, and losing her, it's tough. I mean, it is, man. I was very, very close to my mom. But the same God that helped me through a drug addiction helped me through this process of, walking me through this process of my mom's death. But anyways, there he is. What's up, Robert? How's it going?
Hey,
man?
What's going on, brother? How
Hey,
you doing?
Good, bro. You out in Florida, huh?
Yeah, I'm in Miami.
Miami.
So,
All
yeah.
right, bro. You dress like you're there.
Yeah, I had to dress up, So,
How's it going, man?
man, it's been beautiful. It's been
Yeah.
awesome here with my family, my wife Courtney, and my mom and dad, and then her parents. So it's really been an awesome experience.
It is, man. And I mean, like, just, you being like on vacation and still agreed, to do this, man. That says a lot about you and probably, I would say, your passion for recovery and especially helping other people. Because I know a little bit about your background. I'll let you tell it though. But, it's just, I mean, you inspired me, bro, because like my vision is what you got right now. You know what I mean? Like, I know you'll get into it later. It might make more sense to everybody else what I just said. But it's great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time, especially, you're out there in Miami,
Yeah.
living it up. Because, I actually will be going back home to Hawaii for my mom's service in May. But I'll still be doing these things. I'll still make some time to do it because, that's something, this is something my mom wanted me to continue to do. She was all about helping other people. She never said, help people that you love only and people who irritate you. Nah, don't really help them. My
Yeah.
mom helped everybody. So, I want to continue to carry that legacy of love that she left,
That's beautiful.
because there's such a huge, there's a huge stigma, around addiction today. And me personally, I believe why there's a stigma attached to addiction, it is out of pure ignorance people are just uninformed. They just don't know. That's all. It's not because they're bad or they're stupid or, you know, that's it. It's pure ignorance, in my opinion. You know. Um, but anyways, bro. So before you get into your story, I'm just gonna ask you a few basic questions. Now, the first one is, how long have you been sober?
So I've been sober since April 28th of 2012. So coming up on 9 years at the end of this April. So
Nice, man.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it blows my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, yeah. And I know you're in Miami now, but where are you from?
So I'm originally from Odessa, Texas, but I live in Pflugerville, which is just north of Austin. And Pflugerville, well, strangely enough, is spelled with a P. So it's PF. I always
Oh,
find that
wow.
funny. Yeah. But yeah, I got to
Okay.
Austin kind of as soon as I could. I grew up going to Lake LBJ there with my dad and mom, and then we would go to all the UT football games. So I did a lot of, you know, my addiction in Austin as well, but all over Texas, of course,
Mhm.
because I was trying to escape it, but I
Right.
couldn't escape myself.
I know. Bummer.
Yeah,
I had the same problem, bro.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So last question before we get into your story. What was your choice in drink and or drug?
Heroin
Mhm.
probably is like the thing that I mean, every substance that I use, including alcohol, I fell in love with.
Uh-huh.
And it was like that. Well, no, it's a false love now, but it's like I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I said that about everything near that I tried, but I think the entanglement and what heroin did for me um, early on. I mean, until it was like, this is horrible and I couldn't stop.
Mhm.
But that would be my go-to.
Yeah. Okay. Right on, bro. So at this time, I will give you the floor to tell your story right now, and then as we wind down, I'll ask you those questions.
All right. Yeah, so I really appreciate you having me on, and I always it was hammered into me is always say yes if
Mhm.
you can, and you always can, and the only reason you should say no is if you're at at your own funeral.
Mhm. Either dead or dying, huh?
Yeah. So that was hammered into me pretty early on, and I was like, all right, I'll be the yes man. So it's really an honor, and that's like the support that I have from my family and my wife. They're always, adamant about, me doing, saying yes to these things because
Mhm.
it's not about me anymore. Even
Right.
though a lot of times I do make it about me.
Yeah.
Um, but kind of interestingly enough, when you said you were going back to Hawaii, yeah, it brought a memory. I used to how I told my story for the longest time until probably I was about 2, 3 years sober. I thought my first interaction with abusing a substance or using it, alcoholically,
Mhm.
in a form of addiction was alcohol, and I always told, well, I was like 11 or 12, and I snuck into my dad's liquor cabinet, and me and a buddy we set out we were going to share a glass of vodka,
Mhm.
but we ended up drinking nearly the whole bottle.
Mhm.
But like as I get sober, more things are revealed to me about my past that I didn't remember or I pushed deep down within me. And actually, I went on a family vacation. We spent Thanksgiving in Hawaii and got to experience a lot of the culture there, which was really powerful and cool. And that's I learned how to surf there.
Yeah.
Um, it was just like we didn't have. I'm from West Texas. It's just completely flat, desert-like windstorms. You know, to this just I don't know. I can't. You just have to experience it. Even pictures don't do it justice.
Yeah.
But I was young. I was probably I don't know, like 7, 8 or 9 years old, and I was born premature, and so I was diagnosed with asthma. I had asthma and allergies, and so I always carried around an inhaler. And I had an asthma attack. That trek to Hawaii is something else too. I've never felt so tired. It was like, you know,
Mhm.
being that age, I felt like I slept forever. But,
Mhm.
um, I had this asthma attack kind of in the middle of the night. My parents were sleeping, and so I ran to the bathroom, get my inhaler, and I hit the asthma inhaler just like a bunch of times.
Hmm.
And my intention wasn't to get high. I mean, like I hadn't experienced anything like, with drugs or alcohol at this point. Um, but it produced this effect. Like I didn't do it as recommended, which was like usually I would take one, two, maybe three if it was an extreme kind of like asthma attack. But I hit that thing like 20 times.
Yeah.
Um, and like just was like, whoa, this is awesome. Like I could breathe well and I got a little, bonus from that. And so,
Mhm.
that was my first kind of like didn't intend, kind of just stumbled across, this medicine that produced an effect that I fell in love with. And so it was like every time I got a little asthma attack, I would, hit it more than I needed to.
Mhm.
Um, but kind of background of my family, I grew up in a wonderful household. Addiction and alcoholism is sprinkled throughout my family tree. And, I was warned as a kid, like, hey, you need to be careful around that stuff. My dad, he's sober now. He's in long-term recovery, but he struggled with alcoholism. Other members of my family did. And so it's something that it was normalized, right? Like it was okay,
Mhm.
in some regard, but it was like also they were like, hey, you need to be careful.
Right.
And, I can't really blame, I mean, I tried to blame my addiction on other people, but like sitting here now, like there is no real, like I can't blame anyone, for this happening, and my kind of opinion is like that it's, possibly it was genetic, right? Because the first time that I did anything, I went overboard with it, and like a lot of things in life, I go to the extreme. There's not like, there's no middle ground,
Yeah.
if I was gonna drink or if I'm gonna smoke pot or do cocaine, like, in my mind, I may have had a plan, like, all right, I'm just gonna get a gram or whatever,
Mhm.
but I'd go back and get more,
Mhm.
And so that's kind of like my opinion on it. And like, went to a really good elementary school, had a lot of memories there, growing up, and was only child, so I got everything that I needed in life to be successful. And both of my parents are very successful. My dad's a lawyer in Odessa, Texas, and kind of like the idea, is like, I'm Robert E. White Jr. And the idea is like, I stay the course, and maybe one day I can take over the law firm. That didn't happen. um, but I think, I wouldn't change anything that happened, and I know my family wouldn't either, because of the experiences. The message that I get to carry today, has that depth and weight. Um, but going through high school, I was very active. I liked sports. I played soccer.
Mhm.
I was a swimmer. I played football. Um, and moving into junior high, I think I experimented with some more substances, but I kept my grades to where like I wouldn't get any flack from my family or whatever. Maybe occasionally I'd goof off and get a low grade, and they'd have a sit down with me, but I was able to kind of like just navigate my way. I feel like not pretty easily. Like there was some work, but I didn't. I had other interests in mind other than just school. I wanted to have fun, and so that was more like of a weekend type deal. Like getting the older kids to buy us alcohol, or trying to talk the gas attendant, the clerk, to let
Mhm.
me buy alcohol or whatever, and weed smoking. And as I progressed into high school, through junior high and high school, I was mainly swimming. I was in the choir, and I was playing football. And in eighth grade, I like injured my left heel. And so I still really wanted to be a part of that unity, that camaraderie, that brotherhood that football gives us. And so I was like, well, what could I do that is the least impactful when it comes to running? And I was like, all right, well, I'll be a place kicker and a punter. That seems
Mhm.
pretty easy. Like, how hard could it be to, to punt a ball or to kick that thing through the uprights? And I actually learned that it was pretty difficult, to be consistent at it. It's like it seems like such a simple movement, but there's a lot of technique. And so um, my parents actually found a kicking coach, Rocky Willingham, and he's out of Dallas. And so I started flying and go visit him. And then, I went to the football camps at the University of Texas. It was just like, all types of camps growing up. But he had a kicking camp. And so I just like fell in love. It was like something that was really, other than, alcohol and drugs weren't like the center of my universe at this point. It was just something that, when I did it, it was out of control. But I felt like I had a handle on it.
Yeah.
And, I remember actually one time, since I would go visit him mainly on the weekends, geez, I had to probably be like 16 years old or something like that. And I got an older guy to buy me some some of the Mickey's, like the big Mickey's beer,
Yeah.
or the malt liquor, I guess it is. And I carried those with me through the airport to Dallas. And I was just like, and they stopped, like, it was weird. This had to be before, like, they really looked at some things. I'm trying to remember what year, because this wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have, I don't know. Or they just were like, whatever, it's just a
Uh-huh.
kid having fun. But they opened the bag and they saw what it was and they just let me go, which I thought was the weirdest thing. I thought I was going to be in deep shit. I was like, they were like, I don't know. That was like, whatever. Maybe they were like, man, we're trying to get home or something like that. But,
Right, right.
um, my kicking coach would talk to me about it, like, because he knew, how I was like on the weekends, and he didn't really like make a big deal about it, but he would kind of try to counsel me and give me some life experience, and kind of encourage me to follow my path of place kicking and punting and or whatever is next, even if I wasn't able to do that at the next level. Um, but you know, life continued on, and I found myself just in love with this, place kicking and punting, and it was like a meditative activity. And at this time, I was swimming varsity, and I was playing junior varsity, place kicking and punting, and I was about to transition to varsity for football, and I decided to quit swimming. I would get in a lot of like kind of like passive aggressive conversations with my swim coach, and what I heard him say versus what he actually told me was like, like you need to be more disciplined, like if you're going to be a dual sport athlete. But what I heard him say is like you need to either pick swimming or football. And I kind of told him to screw off, and I made it to regionals in swimming, and had an opportunity my senior year, if I would have kept on with it, to go to state. But through my own selfishness and kind of just like, all right, well, that's one less sport. I can kind of do what I want. And I was smoking weed probably, pretty much every day now. Taking pain pills, and it's my senior year in high school. I like, kind of just like started resting on, we call it resting on our laurels in recovery. Yeah, that's what I was doing. It's like I made it. I'm about to graduate. I'm a senior. It's time to party and have fun. And that's what I did. And no longer was it a weekend deal. I'd sneak off at practice, and smoke weed, because conveniently the place kickers, we would basically be, two football fields away, and the baseball field separated the main practice from our practice. And we just did our own thing, even though, we did have a special teams coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And that progressed into my senior year. And I received, so it didn't really affect me, on the field. I didn't feel like, I still performed. There's a few times, that I could look and say it did affect me, but I didn't feel like that at the time, that it was affecting anything. But right before, I guess it was like maybe one game into our senior year, my parents had went out of town, and I took their car out. Bud Light Lime had just came out, and so I was going to go meet one of my buddies out by the stadium. He lived right next to the stadium, and we were just going to talk about hey, this is our final year. I had 2 letters. I actually went on a home visit game to Texas A&M. Got to tour their locker room, meet the coaches, and it wasn't a scholarship letter, but they were definitely interested in me if I decided to walk on, get into Texas A&M. Later, I justified why that, which we'll get into. But I had more opportunities in the world than I could, think of. Very blessed, and just could not, seem to not stay out of trouble or end up in these jams. And so when my parents went out of town, I drank like enough to get a good buzz. And I drove out there. And on the way out there, I got in a wreck. I T-boned this lady that had just bought a new Jeep. And that was at the time, I could justify that it was her fault because she pulled out in front of me. But I was speeding and I was drunk. So therefore, fault lies on me no matter which way you look at it. And, today I see that self. Luckily, no one was, badly injured or anything like that, including me and the lady or any other, innocent bystanders. And so I got my first DUI. And this is a small town, Odessa, Texas is, and so word travels fast. About everybody's, stuff that they go through, good and bad. And so Monday rolls around, another ripple effect. My parents were out of town on vacation, having fun, and now I interrupted it, and they come back and bail me out, and through the relationships that they have with, I guess whoever they had the relationship with, it's kind of just a slap on the wrist. I think maybe I had to do some community service or something like that, which is pretty simple. And there was a conversation about it for sure. But, my coach Monday morning rolled around, right after practice, my coach sat me down and asked me, hey, did this happen? And I could have said no, I could have lied. But something told me to just be honest about it. And, so I got honest, and he said, hey, I'm going to have to suspend you for 3 games, but, I really encourage you to really take a look at where you want to be at the end of this year. Or something along those lines. I don't remember the exact conversation, but, he's trying to counsel me and guide me. He didn't rip me a new one. He was very compassionate and understanding, and, appreciated my honesty, but also said hey, it's time to get your ass in gear, can't be fooling around with this if you're trying to, live a better life. And so I meant it at the time. I was dead serious when I looked in his eyes. I was like, you're right, coach. I don't want to do this. I'm going to buckle down and, focus on my studies and focus on practice. And, I'll be ready to go after these 3 game suspension. And, I meant that with every, fiber in my being. And that didn't happen. And so when I look at what it's like to be, or what the qualifications are for me to be, addicted or suffer from addiction, is that, I want to stop, but my most powerful desire, this thing that I love, football, the opportunity to play at the next level, if I just keep my shit together, will not keep me from drinking and drugging. And so I spiraled further into this, and that's when I actually started skipping practice, and I practiced enough to be in the game, and I did fairly well that senior year. But no matter how much I wanted to, really pursue my dream of playing college football, it didn't matter. And so I redoubled my efforts after that senior year. I maintained my athletic shape. And my plan was to walk on. My mom was kind of fed up with my BS at this point. She said, hey, if you want to go to Texas A&M, you need to figure it out. Call the student advisor over there, check the boxes off, do what they need to ask. But I'm done, enabling you on helping you around this because like you clearly don't care.
Hmm.
And it wasn't that I don't care, it's like it's just like I suffer from addiction, and
Hmm.
it's not a good justification, but it's the truth. And my want to do better, feet didn't match what my mouth said, and but I also didn't know how to stop or didn't know have the tools or presented to me to live a different life. I tried everything. It put me in counseling, and um, early on in my years, I got diagnosed with ADHD, so I was prescribed Ritalin, and then
Hmm.
it was Concerta or Vyvanse. And then I began to abuse those, of course. I hated taking those when I was younger, but later on in high school and college when I went, like I definitely abused those. But I got some money from my grandparents my senior year, graduated, um, and you know, I fully intended to try to like double the money. My plan was I'm going to buy as much weed as I can with this money and, at least double it, if not, a little bit over. I horrible drug dealer. That's why when I was watching the one earlier today, the guy that told his story
Oh
earlier
yeah, yeah.
today,
Hmm.
I definitely identify. I was a horrible drug dealer.
Hmm.
I always got high on my own supply. Always.
Yeah.
Um, just it's definitely something that I should not try to do ever. But I tried. It's like something it was like a justification for me to buy more. It's like, all right, I can buy more if I'm going to sell some of it.
Hmm.
But really, like I would always use all of it.
Yeah.
Um, and so instead of, going to Texas A&M and, trying to walk on and play football, I ended up going to my first treatment center in California. And like I had a great time there, I got to surf, I got to go to the YMCA there, got to eat really good. And, I figured out that, I might have a problem, but I couldn't see it, 17, 18 years old. I was like, my perspective, like we were talking about earlier, the ignorance around addiction is like I had ignorance. I
Yeah.
thought, my dad was very successful, and whenever he was, in his drinking days and stuff like that, it's like he created a successful business. Like, why couldn't I? I'm not homeless. I'm not drinking out of a brown paper bag unless like I just am doing it to be cool or whatever,
Mhm.
Um, but it's like that's the ignorance around addiction. It's like ignorance does not discriminate. Or I mean, addiction does not. Ignorance doesn't either. But
Mhm.
addiction does not discriminate.
Mhm.
No matter where I live, no matter how much money I have, it doesn't matter. It'll take from me.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's the change on that perspective, and it rattled me later on. But whenever I couldn't avoid the truth that I did suffer from this disease,
Right.
um, but it took a lot of time in between that first treatment, 7 years, for me to finally be willing to surrender to a program of recovery. And the doctors and the clinical team, they're very helpful in that first treatment center. But I was like, thanks for the information. Like now I know what to do. It's like the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was at the place where self knowledge will fix it. If I just like moderate, or if
Uh-huh.
I just like do it on the weekends or,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
And
that was
that's,
Jim. That was Jim's problem.
oh
Self-knowledge will
yeah.
fix this.
Oh yeah, Jim. Yeah, I definitely identify with a lot of those stories. But I was so caught up on the differences.
Yeah.
I was like, you want me to read this book that was written in the 30s? Like, I'll read it, but I don't identify with Bill. Like, what kind of language is he speaking?
Yeah.
It's like all this stuff, and but sooner rather than later, hopefully,
Yeah.
you'll be able to look for the similarities, and hopefully my story can help you save some pain, shave some pain off of
Mhm.
what you don't have to experience. But so I went back to Odessa, and I was there for, I think, 30, 45 days. Got in really good shape. Uh, and this was kind of like my mindset. I'm gonna get in the best shape of my life. I'm gonna, I'm not an Aggie. I'm hook 'em horns. Like I bleed burnt orange. So like this was like God. He was just like preventing me from, basically betraying, my dad's alma mater and like the thing that I rooted for. No offense, Aggies. Texas A&M is a wonderful college, but it's just that rivalry. It's like in my insanity, the addiction, the mind. The chatter. It'll tell me anything for me to believe and justify why I didn't walk on, and this was why it was godsend. Everything happens for a reason. I mean, it does, but I justified it to use it to my selfish.
Right.
Everything it was about me, and so I go to Odessa College for a few semesters, and get some grades. I don't know how I was doing. I was taking Xanax like every day, and I was just a blur, smoking weed every day, taking pain pills as much as I could. Dabbling with ecstasy on the weekends, and doing cocaine. It's like that was kind of like my prescription to stay well and to function in life. And I was working at this restaurant and my parents, shortly after I stayed sober for a little bit, but, justified smoking weed because it's from the earth. Um, and I woke up to that as like everything's from the earth. What am I getting, heroin from Mars or something like that? Everything is made from the earth, and,
Yeah.
so, but, I just anything that could justify to get high. And, I was like, all right, you know, Odessa's got to be the problem. And so I, got a girlfriend, and, we hung out, and it was really great. And, I was kind of able to like start managing a little bit better. She liked smoking weed, and, all my friends did. And, I was like, all right, I'm going to train. I'm going to move to San Angelo, and I'm going to walk on, and I'm going to stay there for like a year and then transfer to UT. That'll be the best plan. Small school, small town. It's not too far from my hometown, and this will be good. And I didn't. I failed miserably. Best shape of my life. I was mainly just smoking pot and drinking on the weekends. I probably smoked pot every day, but I felt like I was managing. I had it under control. Um, and I took a Xanax, or a few Xanax, the weekend prior to school starting, and somehow I managed to pass PE, but I don't remember going to a single PE class. And so that lasted about 6, 7 months. I got arrested 3 times for possession of marijuana, and I went on a cocaine bender for that 6 months. And I finally got so paranoid that a lot of stuff I totaled a friend of mine's car. I just like was horrible at driving when I was intoxicated, and I could never avoid the police. It was like just like, all right, just here I am. It's like, and it wasn't like loud or anything like that, but like I just like was foolish. There's a lot of things that I didn't get caught, doing, but more often than not, I always found myself in the backseat of a police car, whether it be for possession of marijuana, whether it be for totaling a vehicle, whatever. And so I was like, in this cocaine psychosis, paranoid. I thought people were coming to get me, and my mom had come and taken her car back from me. I was like got pissed off because of that, but I wouldn't do anything. Like the gifts that I was given, like I was taking advantage of them. Very selfish. And so I called a taxi, packed up all my stuff in that taxi, and my parents were like, "Don't come here." So I called my dad's mom, my nanny, and only grandchild, so she thinks of me like no matter what I've done is like an angel. And so I can always get away from stuff. She prayed for me every night, every day. Took care of me, and so I moved in there once again, trying to escape San Angelo because San Angelo is the problem.
Yeah.
It didn't last too long. I started stealing from my grandmother. Yeah, and I justify I wasn't stealing anything of like real value, but like she kept every medication she'd ever been prescribed because she wouldn't use all the prescription. And so I'd find somas, I'd find, lean, I'd find, all types of array. I was like, man, this is heaven,
Mm.
you know? And so I just like continued, to spiral in my addiction. Would party, wouldn't communicate when I would come home. She would try to set some real solid boundaries, but, she couldn't see, what she probably needed to see at that time. And I'm kind of grateful for that because it allowed me to further spiral down in my addiction. But once again, it's like, got into the good graces of my parents again and, kind of sobered up or made it appear that I was doing better. And, my girlfriend at the time was going to transfer to Denton, Texas, or was going to go to Denton, Texas for school at North Texas. So I was like, all right, I'm going to, get back in shape, redouble my efforts, and I'm going to transfer to a junior college there, do that for a year, practice, and then transfer to North Texas because that's where she was going and play college football. I was going to kick, and that was something that I always like held on to. That was like the one thing that allowed me to justify whether that was to move. I always blamed like, okay, Odessa's the problem. San Angelo is the problem. Odessa is the problem again. So we moved to Denton, Texas. She stayed in the dorm. I had my own apartment. She stayed over there often. And it was like time went well for a little bit. And then my buddy turned 21. And so we started taking shots at Jack Daniels early on. And, I found myself drinking nearly the whole bottle. What took her car to go get more alcohol and some other substances. And I blacked out. The last thing I remember was entering into, like I got back and I entered into our apartment complex. And then I came to and I was in the apartment in my boxers. I don't remember anything in between that. And, his girlfriend and my girlfriend were out. They were coming back and they walked in and she was like, "What the heck did you do to my car?" And I was like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And so I go outside and I'm in my boxers and, the car's parked, but it's not really in a parking space. It's in front of it's like blocking one of the lanes that you drive down in the apartment complex. And it's in front of a handicap, and so it's not even in a space. And I walk around, like, I don't see any like damage to the vehicle. I look at the front, walk around the left side, don't see anything. Look at the back. I'm like, what is she talking about? And then I go to the other side. I'm like, holy shit! Like, no, the axle was bent. Her wheel was like sitting like this.
Oh.
So I don't know if I ran over a curb or what I did. I don't know. That's the only possible thing I can think of. But so now it's like I don't even know why I'm doing this because it's like doesn't make sense. But we do a lot of things that don't make sense, of course. But I start like trying to pull on the wheel, like I'm like have enough physical strength to bend it back into place. It's like, and the two cop cars pull up, and they say, "Hey, what's going on?" And I just lose it. I yell some things at them and take off running because I'm not trying to go back to jail again. And I run towards my apartment. My buddy's sitting on the outside, just sitting there, and he sees me running, sees these two cops chasing after me, and he's just like shaking his head. I double deadbolt the locks in the apartment, and they knock and they're being nice, say, "Hey, what's going on? We just wanted to, we were just seeing what's going on with you, because you're in your boxers in the middle of the street. Like, is everything okay?" And I just said, like, "Screw you, leave me alone." I used other language, I cursed at them. And they said, "Hey, like, are you okay? What's going on?" and they didn't know. So they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have to kick down this door. Like, if you're not compliant." And I was like, "For what?" It's like, "Do you have a warrant? Do you, like, what's going on? Like, what are your, what's your probable cause?" I knew like the language to speak at them.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, "No, we are. Like, if you could be of harm to yourself, we don't know what you're doing in there. We don't know if anyone else is in there. You ran from us. Like, you fled you know, there's a car parked in the middle. It looks like there was a wreck or, something happened to it." And I was like, "Screw you. You can try to kick it down." But, so I put the couch in front of it, everything.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Man, no, hopefully they don't get in here." I was on the first level. And so I just started drinking and smoking pot. And, they tried to kick it down, and they couldn't. And so I was just like hysterically laughing, because I was like, "Oh, it worked finally." Like, I was like I have the upper hand. Like, I can't stay in that apartment forever, like they'll eventually get me. Um, but I was like, maybe they'll just leave, give up or something like that. They don't, um, because I don't know what's going on. And later I found out, and this is like the selfish ripple effect, is someone had called. Um, and if it was me, I don't remember this, and I don't think it was me, but someone had called saying that they were going to kill themselves.
Mhm.
And so this is like the selfish. So they're dealing with me, right? Like, because like they think that I am acting like I am that person. Like, I'm in my boxers, like I look insane. I'm not being compliant. I'm not, talking to them nicely. I'm just acting erratic. Um, and so, meanwhile, someone else, if this really did happen, they need the help. They need the assistance. So do I. I mean, I was definitely acting like I wanted to kill myself, and
Mhm.
but they eventually get in and drag me out. Um, on the way there, I spit on the police officer. I try to fight with them. And so I get charged with assault of a police officer, get put in jail. I call my mom, say, "Hey, I need help. Got to get me out of here." I didn't call to get help. I called to get bailed out of jail. But I would say anything and everything if the end result was me getting bailed out.
Mhm.
So now it's off to my second treatment center, um, and I'm looking at uh, 5 years. My parents gave me a good attorney, and they get it that part of the stipulation is I need to go to treatment, do all these classes, whatever, some community service, and they'll give me 5 years deferred probation.
Mhm.
And so after treatment, I'm like, all right, maybe I have a drinking problem, maybe. So I get sent to sober living afterwards in Dallas. I manipulated my mom to allow me to keep my apartment in Denton. And it's like I found a way. It's like I always held on to this, like kind of like this. I knew what strings to pull with with each parent.
Mhm.
And my mom was like my education. She wanted to get my education. I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to this junior college," and things like that. And found myself, a couple weeks later, smoking weed with a guy that I got out of treatment with in my apartment. Um,
Mhm.
and this is what led to my heroin addiction. He was sitting there. I was probably 19, and he was nodding off, and I was like, "Man, this like I'm not getting the same effect from this weed that we're smoking." It was like I know it's some good weed, but like I'm not like that high. I was like, "Hey, man, like what are you doing?" He's like, "Please don't get mad at me or whatever." And I was like, "Look, in my head, I was like, I'm not mad. I'm trying to get on your level. Like what's
Mhm.
going on?" And he was like, "It's heroin." And I was like, "Well, how do I do that?" And like I told myself long time ago, like I'd never use heroin.
Mhm.
For some reason, like justified cocaine was okay, but like I'm not going to do heroin. It's like it's like ridiculous. Um, and he was like, "You do not want to do that ever." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? Why not? Like you seem pretty like high from it. Like I want to try it." Like it didn't matter what he told me. Like I was going to do it no matter what. And so he said, "Well, I shoot it up." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how to do that. Like, will you help me? Like, will you show me how?" He was like, "You don't ever want to do this. Like, your life's going to be over." Um, I was like, yeah, right. It's like, it can't be
Right.
that bad. The ego started talking. So he shot me up. And so I found myself driving from Denton to Dallas, about an hour drive daily, to Martin Luther King, pretty rough side of Dallas, walking around, getting high, going into places that, I didn't have any business being in, and just spiraling, and I kept that up for probably about 6 months. And went on a family vacation. My dad had came to visit me like a few weeks prior. We were going to watch the Super Bowl and hang out, and I did a shot the night before, and didn't wake up on time. We got to watch the game together. My dad was sober by this time, and I really appreciate the space that he gave me. Like, he didn't really like get off in my ass about it, or anything like that. He didn't know that he knew that I was doing something. He didn't know it was heroin. But he kind of like just was held that space for me. Um, Still, he could have been like, like, screw you, like, he didn't wake up, go about
Hmm.
his own business. But he showed up for me, and I didn't see it from that perspective until later. But he was trying to lead by example, being sober now. And that's really powerful. I'm really grateful for that. And I didn't get sober, until I was 24, and I was 19 at this point, or 20. Um, yeah, I was 20 now. So I go on this family vacation, fly to Colorado. So I brought enough heroin with me. Of course, never do. I was probably through half of the supply on the way up there, getting high in the airport bathrooms. And I got high, wanted to join the Mile High Club.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
Hmm.
and I get there, and I ran out like a day in, and I'm just freaking out because I'd experienced some dope sickness, but I knew, like, man, I've got like 3 more days, and I'm gonna be miserable. So I walked around, tried to found some weed, but that helped a little bit, got the edge off. But I was just saved up as much cottons as I could, and I finally, like, I wasn't skiing, so I was telling my parents I was sick, and I was more truthful than I realized. But finally got honest with them and told them that I've been shooting heroin, and so they took me to the hospital, and the doctor there said, I was covered up in track marks, looked like a pin cushion, was weighing 140, 150, probably usually weigh 175, 180, just looked horrible. And doctor gave me a year. He said, look, if you don't take care of this, the way you are using this substance, you're not going to live for a year. Um,
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, right. You don't know. But I was very, I guess, cordial or whatever. Like, I was like, yes, sir, or whatever. I know how to play the game. He was like, I'm not going to give you anything, like a prescription for anything. I'm going to give you three, I think it was like three Ativan, and this will tide you over, but you need to go straight to a treatment center. So I went back to treatment. This time a little bit more open-minded that, I was screwed, that I was doomed. 12 steps have been introduced to me, but, I always was like buffet style. I choose the things that were convenient to me, and ignored the rest. And this time I dove in, and had some really powerful experiences. I still had some reservations around drinking, and pot, but I gave the program, well, at that time, like, what I felt like a fair shot. I really didn't, looking back, because I had these reservations, and I wasn't getting transparent about it. And so that lasted around 6 months. I stayed sober for 6 months, and met a girl again, of course, got in a relationship, very codependent. We fell in love, and we started using heroin together. But before that, like, right at the 6 month mark, I found myself in this hair salon with her, and great day, perfect day, 6 months, like, not a worry in the world. Started going to San Antonio College. I was going to go there for a year. Then we were going to move to Austin. I was going to walk on to UT, and play college football. It's the same thing, over and over and over again. And like, the hostess asked if I wanted something to drink, And, I said, no, I don't drink. I could have said, yeah, please, give me a water or soda or whatever. But, it's like
Mhm.
I take things so literal. And so I sit down and I'm reading a Sports Illustrated magazine, and the thought crosses my mind, like, man, that Dos Equis guy, from the commercials, like he never had, and he looks like a good guy. Like, what's one Dos Equis going to do? I'm a
Mhm.
heroin addict, I'm not an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And so I go back up to the hostess, like, actually, you know what, ma'am? Like, I would like a Dos Equis if you have any. And so she gives me a Dos Equis, 21 years old, and I sit down. I don't even know if I sat down. I think I drank the entire beer standing up.
Mhm.
And I instantly recalled that as we pulled in, there was a liquor store across the street. I didn't realize that I saw that. That's the insane part. But
Mhm.
I knew there was a liquor store across the street. I was like, all right, bye, babe. Like, I'm gonna go do some things, and I grab a handle of vodka, and it was off to the races again. And I don't know if it was a day later, a week later, a couple days later, but we're in San Antonio, and I come to um, in Dallas, Texas, back in front of the dope dealer's house. And she's sitting next to me, and she's like, you know, where are we going to get the heroin? She'd never used heroin, so I introduced someone else to heroin. Um, and it was an amazing experience until it wasn't. It was like this delusion that I was in. Like, man, the entanglement of this addiction and this codependent relationship was, something that like I got high off for a period of time until it got so bad that no amount of heroin was going to fix anything.
Mhm.
And I would try to get sober for periods of time, get dope sick, and try the Suboxone maintenance or tried methadone maintenance, um, which can be helpful if used properly, obviously. But I was just trying to get high, um, and I had no reason to get sober. Um, and now San Antonio is the problem, having relationship problems. So we're kind of like together, but we're not together. We're living together, but we're not together. Still getting high, still getting drunk.
Mhm.
And this goes on. We moved to Austin, and now I'm driving from Austin to San Antonio. Sometimes he'd meet me halfway. Sometimes he'd be coming to Austin. But one night, I'm on deferred probation, meeting with my PO, and since it wasn't a drug related charge, they rarely drug tested me or breathalyzed me. Um, I was probably like 2.5 years into this, and I get pulled over on my way back from San Antonio because I'm nodding out, swaying in and out, driving erratically. And so they pull me over, search the car, don't find anything, search me, don't find anything, tell me to pull off my shoes, and then they find the heroin. So now I'm in jail again, violated probation. So now I'm looking like at a minimum of 5 years in prison, plus whatever they get me for the possession of controlled substance. And this goes back to Denton County, which is a pretty hardcore county to get in trouble in. And that 5 years deferred probation was a slap on the wrist. Like, they're going to throw the book at me. So I was looking at 10 years, check myself into treatment, um, and, have this powerful experience. Now I'm like completely sold out. Like, I'm screwed. Um, and so I stay sober for a year. And throughout this time, like, carrying the message back to the treatment center I went to, my counselor there helped me out greatly. I'm doing everything that I need to do, going to my home group, living in a sober living, like anything that they're bringing to me, instead of it's like an objection, like I'm starting to say yes to things. I'm meeting with my sponsor weekly. I'm sponsoring other men.
Mhm.
And I'm just on fire. I'm like, dang, like the recovery really works. Um, and
Yeah.
so I'm going back and forth with the courts this whole time. I get a lot of character letters, and, like, all right, whatever happens, like, this is God's will. Like, I'm just going with the flow, and like, I don't know, I had 11 months sober, And I go and visit, me and my parents go and visit my attorney in Denton County. He said, like, this is like, you're going to have to sign this deal. Like, this is the best you're going to get. And so it went from 10 years to 5 years to 30 months. And he was like, 30 months is the best you can get. You probably get out in like 10 months, be on parole. Like, you're sober now. Like, you got a foundation, you got a fellowship, like, you'll be fine. And like, I wasn't happy about that, obviously, but like, I had some contentment. And I was like, this is what I did. This is what I put myself through. Like, this is pretty fair. It should be
Right.
worse. Um,
Robert, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I just looked at the time. We're running low on time. I just
oh
wanted
yeah.
to make you aware. Yeah, you got maybe about 5-10 minutes left.
Okay, yeah, I can wrap it up.
Yeah.
So, went into prison, um, stayed sober for 4 months. And this is like the insanity of the addiction, right? Like resting on laurels. And, I was in there for 3 months. I got transferred around, got transferred to a pre-parole, pre-release facility. The whole time in there, like, I felt more free in my life. Like, I didn't want to be in there. I don't think a lot of people do. There are some that are incarcerated. It's a state of being, that it becomes a normality. But I was like, dang, like, recovery does work. And so I started getting like short timer syndrome. I was 3 months in, transferred to this pre-parole, pre-release facility, still prison. There was guys in there that had been there for 25 years. And, but I started listening to, people in there, and they said, look, you're about to get out. Like, you got a 30-month sentence. Like, you being here, like, you'll probably be out in like 4 months, 5 months, maybe 6 months tops. I was like, all right, cool. And so I started like being lackadaisical. My program of recovery started slipping. I started participating in some dishonest activities. I was smoking cigarettes, which was illegal, which was justifiable. Everyone was doing it, right? And,
Mhm.
one night, I decided, like, I want my own tobacco. So I manipulated my mom to get a green dot card, and I gave this guy the number so that I could get my own, tobacco. And me and a cellmate, we would share our tobacco. And one night I'm sitting with him and smoking, the cigarette, and I just feel weird. I'm like, what the hell's in this cigarette? He was like, oh, it's K2. And so this is like the gym's experience. So I freak out. I'll go to my bunk, lay down, and I'm like, man, you need to call your sponsor or someone, or talk to someone about this. Like, it wasn't your intention to get high, but you're high. It's not a relapse, but you need to get transparent about this. And then another voice came in. It's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, you can deal with it tomorrow. Problem is tomorrow doesn't come. And so when I woke up, my thought was like, I'm a heroin addict. I'm an alcoholic, but if I can mix K2 with tobacco, like, I'll be all right. And so for the next 4 months, that's what I did until I got to this very dark place, where I was about to get out. So they were right. But, if I would have kept the, all gas, no brakes, if I would have kept the pedal to the metal, like, I would have been, free and content. And, now I'm like, I got to keep this to myself. Like, I can't tell anyone. And I get to this really dark spot in my life. And, I was like, I hope I do not see 25. Like, that's how miserable I was. And so I sat in that dark spot for about a week. And then another thought came in. It's like, no, like, recovery isn't bullshit. Like, you've had experience. Like, you put yourself in this position yet again. Like, you got to stop blaming other people. Like, this is your responsibility. You've been introduced to a way of life that gets better, never worse, but you stop doing it.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit, that's the truth. And I was like, I can't walk away from this truth anymore. And so I was willing to get honest about this secret, but not yet, And so
Right.
I got out, pretended that I was sober. We opened up Any Length Sober Living. That grew. For the first year, I managed the sober house. Had many powerful experiences. I was carrying the message. When it came time, I went back through the work with my sponsor. And when it came time to get honest about that, like, I lied through omission. So I told all the way up to the point to where he spiked the weed. I said, no, I didn't use anymore. And after, in that like hour of meditation, I was like, dude, you just lied. you know, like how free you want to be. I was like, I can't. Like I'll pray for the willingness, you know, in step 6. Like I'm not there yet. So I kept this little secret, you know, this big secret to me, to myself.
Right. Yeah.
A year passed by. Yeah, I couldn't handle it anymore. Macklemore came out with a song called Starting Over, and it was like
Uh-huh.
every single place I went, anytime I got in the car, it would play, and it was just like God shots. It was
Yeah.
like, you know, and the
Yeah.
part of that song, it was like, if I can be an example of, you know, getting sober, then I can be an example of starting over. I'm like, all right, what the heck, God?
Hey, I have a question for you, real quick.
Uh,
Some of my friends here, they're talking about because my lives, I've only gone 1 hour, and I've never had this before. So I just wanted to run it by you. See what they're saying? They're talking about doing a part 2.
yeah, I'm
Because
down.
I'm really into it as well. Like I'm like whoa, And I know you're just starting to get into the recovery side,
Uh,
but is that something you would like to do? Would you like to go live again next week to tell the other half of the story?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Oh, all
Yeah,
right, ladies. There you
yeah.
go, my friend Jill and there you go, part 2. Jill and Blair, they're really excited about that because yeah, you do, bro. You have a truly amazing story. I like how you're very detailed and everything, which is great. But yeah, let's do that then. Is that cool?
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I was like, all
Oh,
right,
okay. All right.
I'll,
Sorry.
yeah,
Then, you can get back to your family. I know you guys are on vacation and everything, but hey, bro, I'm so grateful, man, for you and to listen. And I'm really excited, man. I might call you so you can tell me part 2. You know what I
yeah, absolutely.
mean? But yeah. So would you like to do it at 12 or at 3 next week, Saturday?
Let's do it at 3, so it would be my time now. I'm trying to think about what time would it
Are you
be.
are you still gonna be in
It'd
Miami?
be no, I'll be back next
Okay.
Saturday. So it'd be 12 your time, so it'd be 2 my time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay, awesome, bro. Well, hey, thank you so much, man. I got all these questions and things I got, my notes I got. I'll save it for next week so we can kind of start it off that way, kind of a little bit of a recap because you've been through a lot of stuff, bro. You've been through a lot of
Yeah,
stuff, man.
yeah.
And you're still here, you're still standing. That's amazing, bro. That's like, oh, I love it. But you know what? After this is over, I'll call you. We can chat a little bit more, about everything. But I'll mark you down on my calendar for 12 for noon my time, 2 o'clock your time.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Okay, bro. Hey, you
All right,
have you
brother.
have a great rest of your vacation, man.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
Okay,
All
bye
right.
bye.
Peace.
Okay, well, Blair and Jill, that was a good idea. I never thought of doing that because I didn't want to rush him through his story. So that was part 1 of Robert's story. Next week, you guys heard it at noon Pacific Standard Time. We'll go live again. I also need somebody to fill in the 3 o'clock slot if anybody does, or you know somebody that wants to. Reach out to me. So thank you guys again so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week.